Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. So this is going to be a kind of a little bit of a quick one in terms of recording it, but there are two specific builds for Titan that I do plan on using for the Onslaught game mode. Keep in mind, this upcoming Tuesday, I will be streaming. I'll start streaming at 12:30 Eastern Time. No, I'll be streaming at 12 a.m. Well, 12 noon Eastern Time, 9 o'clock Pacific time. So 12 Eastern time, noon. I will basically, a little half hour before that to really get things geared up. And then for later on, we'll be watching the gameplay little stream that Bungie's doing for the final shape, and then hopping into it. The first thing I think I'm going to do is the Whisper mission. I think that's going to be the very first thing I do, and then maybe try to do some Onslaught. Kind of depends because I do have to get ready for work at 3, so it really kind of depends on when we're able to get into the game. But I'm probably only going to have enough time for a Whisper mission. But on that note, I have two builds for you for Onslaught that I kind of like, and if I did take some anti-champ into consideration for this one. Again, this is not necessarily for newer players. I tried to pick weapons and armor that are free to play, and weapons that are not necessarily easily acquired, but if you've been playing the game for a while, you should probably have, even as a free to play player. So, first and foremost, Severance and Closure. I've kind of started to get into this. I started to use it on Strand Titan, but then I started to use this on Solar, and oh my goodness. But first off, if you want the fashion, here it is. This is my best attempt to make Severance and Closure decent. Once I can get super black, then I can mess around with it a little bit more. But let me know what y'all think of this fashion. I might call it the Golden Cheeks, because as you can see, I have golden cheeks. um, but for the weapons, obviously I have Arbalest for anti-barrier, Zhouli's Bane for unstoppable, and I have Unwavering Duty. Overload is pretty difficult to get through because most auto rifles suck, and I don't like pulse rifles. So I'm also focused on barrier and unstop because unstoppable ogres and barrier hive, and you also have barrier servitors. Barrier is probably going to be the most important champion. From what we saw, there's going to be hive and fallen, and anti-barrier is going to be the important one to get. Now for my super, Hammer of Saul, these are my fragments. Ember of Wonder, Mercy, Char, and Searing. I am not using, instead of Ember of Char, most of the time I use, if I can find it again. Usually I use something different. Is it on this last page? Yeah, usually I use Ember of Ashes, but this build does not rely on building up Scorch decks at all, so I went with something that had a plus 10 to it, so this is gonna, so essentially Ember of Mercy is necessary paired with Ember of Searing because defeating Scorch targets creates a fire sprite, which is great because I can build up some restoration. And we're using Throwing Hammer for the cure aspect, and I'm using Swarm Grenades for a little bit of distance, and I like that grenade. Now for Zhouli's Bane, you do need Explode Payload Incandescent. That is something you need. For the machine gun, though, I am using Unwavering Duty. This is from Trials of Osiris, I believe, and I have auto-loading Focus Fury. I don't have a better roll of this. Preferably pick a solar machine gun. Machine guns are going to be pretty good, especially if there are tormentors, so do keep that in mind. Now for the armor, actually before we go to the armor, stat-wise, Tier 9 Resil, Tier 9 Recovery, you should not be at Tier 10. Tier 10 does not benefit you more. Well, for recovery, yes, but you can go into Tier 10 recovery, but Tier 10 Resil only gives you 3%, and that plus 10 stat can be put into where I put it, which is Discipline, to have that grenade cooldown being pretty fast, and my intellect is pretty high too, so I can cast my super a decent more often. Now, for the extra armor pieces, I wouldn't worry about the stats too much, but these, it's the usual standard setup. You need to have impact induction instead of the other one because your the other version, which is momentum transfer, your melee cooldown is really kind of useless with throwing hammer, so that's why I did double impact induction instead. And obviously you can see the 2 reserves. And I have arc damage resist, but if you can, depends on what ammo type. If necessary, just do sniper resist. Bam. It's just I don't have this masterwork because I don't have enough ascendant shards, which is unfortunate. But for the legs, I actually have 2 double surges and the grenade one. Usually I have a picking up an orb of power grants a burst of heal, but I feel like we heal enough with the setup, and you'll see how broken the throwing hammer is with Severance Enclosure. And then I just have this to keep the extra solar damage up. And as y'all can see, the weapons are there. The only other thing of note, yes, I will be having all of these active. I suggest you have this specific setup active. This will help you. These will help you with everything, essentially. So now I'm going to take this into a lost sector. Here, and of course it's going to be the usual one. It is going to be Cabal. This one I do not plan on taking at the start of... I don't think I'm going to use this build for a 50. Also, if you want to know where the Sparrow is, it's Master King's Fall stuff. But I plan on going with the Doomfangs build, which I'll be showing after Severance Enclosure's done. But I need to see how difficult it's going to be before I even test it out, Severance Enclosure. So I'm gonna see y'all at the Lost Sector. Alrighty, here we are. A lot of the times we're gonna need a little bit of build up. Oh, super. Nice. The only annoying part is the shields. So yeah, it releases a big, gigantic AoE thing. Bonk. Absolutely. As you can see, the throwing hammer is absolutely broken. Oh, I missed. Bruh, how do I keep missing? There we are. I don't think that was meant to happen. Oh! As you can see, this thing is quite broken. Oh, as you can see, we can get the dogs like this. We are essentially infinitely healing. These beefier big boys need to chill down a little bit. Bonk. A trick for the Phalanx shields, you can throw them at their, kind of want to do a bounce shot. And what's good is it destroys their little shield. Oh, hold on a second. We're only using the power of bonk. Ooh. It is kind of finicky to do it with this. We're gonna want to do that. And make sure to always pick up your hammer. Like, ah. Oh, it launched him up. Oh no, my hammer! My hammer's gone. That sucks. Balls. My hammer. And as y'all can see, Zali's main is pretty broken, as per usual. And as you can see, that was absolute perfection. Let's try not to lose our hammer again. Yeah, for these beefier guys, you can just throw down one of these. So beautiful. So good for act clearing and stuff. And again, we have barrier, anti-barrier with Arbalest. And then their hand cannon's unstoppable. Just shooting Arbalest at an anti-barrier champion will stun it. But you have to aim down sights for hand cannons. As you can see, it does a decent chunk of damage. Oh, I missed. And of course we can just cast our super here, go ham a little bit. It's not going to be too crazy necessarily. Just throw a hammer in the midst of ads. Bada bing, bada boom. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. And this is gonna destroy a ton of ads. The one issue with this is Cursed Thrall. If you hit them way too close, you will very possibly die. That's an issue with a lot of melee-based builds.
This is more exhausting than it used to be.
Which is why it is time to swap to the Doomfang Pauldrons build.
Or am I still just sad?
Now, I know there's a weird option here. Also, again, this is a fashion that I usually use for Doomfang Pauldrons. There's the drip if y'all want it. Now, again, these weapons are... This time, I'm not using a free-to-play heavy weapon with commemoration. Once Intellect comes out, you can't actually get Hammerhead. Never mind. There is one called Retrofit Escapade, but it's not a free-to-play Void Machine Gun either. I don't think there actually is one, but you can replace this machine gun with a linear. Now, Bastion is unstoppable. You do not have to aim for it. I don't think, at least. No, you just shoot it. It is a fusion rifle, but it acts closer to a 3-bar shotgun, if that makes sense. It can hit pretty hard. I do wish it had kinetic tremors, because that would be really nice, but this is the setup I plan on taking into Onslaught. Now, brass attacks, this is an old version of this. This is a really old version of it. Also, I don't know why I don't have a shader on it, but we'll put that thing on. But I love brass attacks. I had an older version with Surplus and Frenzy, and brass attacks is still to this day, despite me not having used it very often, is still one of my top 5 energy weapons as far as most kills go. Feeding Frenzy and Frenzy is the perfect perk combination for this. Absolutely phenomenal. There is a free-to-play version of this. If you can get your hands on a good one, if it pops up in Banshee, you need to grab it. Super good. Bastion I'm using for Unstoppable, and mostly so I don't have to run a hand cannon Arbalest, because let's be real here, I don't want to run Arbalest all the time. Commemoration's there mostly for Tormentors. Now, something different that I don't usually do. So, first off, of course, we're using Sentinel Shield. You can see all of this stuff. We're using Shield Throw for distance. I would not necessarily suggest using Shield Bash. However, Shield Bash does stun Overload champions. So, if you want to technically have all 3 champions, you can have Shield Bash on, and technically Suppression Grenade, but I don't really recommend that for this, because this build requires you to have your grenade kills. So, of course, we have our Magnetic Grenade, because in my opinion, it gets kills the most reliably. And, of course, Bastion and Offensive Bulwark are required to go together. And, of course, we have our basic Echo of Leeching, Obscurity, and Instability. The one that's different this time, though, is Echo of Reprisal. Normally, I have on Echo of Exchange, melee Final Blows grant Grenade Energy. This time, though, Final Blows, when surrounded by combatants, grant Super Energy. This build is predicated on being in your Super essentially permanently. That's why I have Doomfang Pauldrons on. And Sentinel Shield is actually a pretty good roaming super because you can throw your shield. And so you can do it from a distance. Currently, there's only 2 Titan supers in the game that can properly do damage at a distance and hit enemies in the air. Those only 2 are Hammer of Saul and Sentinel Shield. Things like Burning Maul can mostly hit things on the ground, and Stasis Titan is really bad and it mostly hits things on the ground. And Thunder Crash is a one-off super. So getting final kills when surrounded, grant super energy is really good because you can get your super back faster, and brass attacks is a close range deal, as you can kind of see. And of course, we have on our Rallying Barricade, and Bastion will give us an overshield for the most part. Now, on to the actual weapon, rolls or whatever. As far as, perks go, your stats go, tier 9s, tier 7, tier 7. If you can't, these two have to be tier 9. Discipline, you can have at tier 6, which is 60. And honestly, higher intellect is probably going to be a little bit more useful here. Again, our goal is to be in our super as long as possible. That's why we have power preservation. Unfortunately, I don't have enough energy slots to really do much else, so I just have heavy ammo finder. But power preservation is going to help everybody else get their super quickly. So everybody else is going to be getting their super quicker, and they can spam their supers, and it can all chain together. And of course, we have our usual mod set up here. Same with here. I would suggest having on recuperation on the legs instead of an extra, void, weapon surge, or something like that. Due to, if things get dicey, the amount of time it takes to put your barricade down is a little bit slow. Which is unfortunate, but there's not really much I can do about that necessarily. Alrighty then, I'll catch y'all back once we've reloaded the Lost Sector. Alright, we are back. Of course, we got our melee kills there. We do want to get that grenade kill, because as you can see, our brass attack is going to be helping us. And this is mostly just to show y'all how long we can actually be in our super for. We missed that. By the way, our super linked is predicated on our shield throw hits. Keep in mind, we're still in our super. We are still in our super. So yeah, that whole entire time we were in our super. And we have our volatile rounds. And as you can see, brass attacks are just an absolute monster. And we can just, switch our Bastion here. It is a little bit slower firing, which is... I would rather them speed up the firing just a little wee bit. I will say, sidearms, this especially struggles at a little bit of a longer range. Oh yeah, commemoration help out with all of that. We wanted the enemies to come to us. And we got volatile, so... You can see we're getting that super energy there. I will say, in terms of the ammo economy, depending on how the ammo economy is for Onslaught, it might actually be better to have on Ashes to Assets on the helmet instead of heavy ammo finder. It just depends on how prevalent ammo is. And again, it doesn't matter on kills, it matters hits. Ooh! Ooh! Beautiful. I see it is. It's honestly pretty easy to keep up. Oh, nice. Also, your barricade. Look at them. They're blinded. Also, you can finish. Finish an enemy, invisible. For me, this build is honestly pretty peak. Pretty peak. We are missing a guy though. I would say the one issue is definitely big boss damage. Cause I mean, like, commemoration is really good for like sustained Delios. Because I have Reconstruction Focus Fury on this thing. I plan on having Hammerhead as my ad clearing machine gun. This is my... Mostly I use this for solo. For solo runs, I don't usually use target lock outside of that. We want him low. So we got that kill. Barricade for that little bit of help. And now we can get some... And we got that frenzy. Now I can just pelt away. Oh, I missed that nade, but that's fine. The only reason why Brass Attacks is as good as it is... Oh, and we got our super back. And you see that I saw that enemy on the right? It's still extending our super. Still super good. Like, y'all have to admit that that build is strong. The only thing I would, the only thing, if you want to switch something out, you can switch out Bastion. Currently, though, I don't think there's a kinetic unstoppable weapon that's special ammo, and I think that's the same case for Overload as well, because the only Overload that I know of is Divinity. I don't think anything. Oh, well, Malfeasance is primary ammo, so. Again, you can equip a kinetic hand cannon of any sort instead of brass attacks. And if you don't have brass attacks, your next best option, in my opinion, is the Crota's End hand cannon with destabilizing rounds and demolitionist. But that's more of a grenade spammy build. I choose to use brass attacks mostly because I want to force. I need to. The thing about brass attacks is you've kind of forced yourself to be surrounded, and commemoration is for longer ranges. So if there's an onslaught encounter with cursed thralls, use commemoration. And if there's a bunch of explosive shanks, use commemoration. Use your long distance grenade. That's why shield throw is there to help you out with those stuff. So that brass attacks and bastion they're close range, but you do have some longer range options. Now my question for y'all is, which one do you think is the most obscure? What do you think is more obscure? Using Severance and Closure or using Bastion? I feel like I haven't seen anyone use Bastion in such a long time, and I also barely see anybody using Severance and Closure. Now, that being said, I have seen it once or twice, but I have seen Bastion less. Just let me know which build do y'all think is better. And on that note, I will catch y'all on the flip side.